how's it going? I just made a video sort of going through the logical process of building a 40 torus shape. Um, and a commenter sort of brought it to my attention that all of this is done on a 2D surface. But what I really wanted to talk about, sort of building on top of that, is all of this that I've done, that I've uh, demonstrated, is pretending that everything can go lower than three plus dimensions. For example, a circle. We're pretending that circles without three dimensionality exist, when in reality, they don't. Circles and squares and lines don't really exist. All of these lower dimensions that we like to think about when we tear apart the bigger dimensions, like cubes and circle and spheres, and then we want to build higher up onto those. It's like we scientists and mathematicians already do this, where they take away a dimension and then build on top of it in another way. But all of this assumes that reality isn't already in the three-dimensional space. It's like we're assuming circles and squares and lines and dots really exist in reality, when even the subatomic particles all the way down forever have some level of depth to them. And we keep going down further and further and further, and still continuing to find depth inside of the smallest things possible. Nothing like this, even this line right here, and I've seen videos talking about very similar things right now. Even this line right here is not one-dimensional, because you zoom in further and further and further. My camera isn't the best, but now you can see there is a little bit of, just a tiny bit of length. So we have width, and there's a tiny bit of length that you can already see in that line. And this is sort of the confusing part about all of this, because we're assuming that these things actually exist, when all we really experience are these things. And then we like to tear them apart and then start building them up in new ways that may or may not exist. And then we come up with some weird, wacky shapes that I don't think anybody is actually claiming exist in real life anyways. But here we are, building these things up, pretending like they're like an answer in math. And that's kind of the thing about math, is that it's like all of this is just tearing it apart and rebuilding things in a different way. But all that really, this is not any, this is not reality. This is not reality. This is what we experience. The only thing that this reminds me of is the smaller particles and gravity, and specifically electromagnetism. Like, for example, the poles at the north and south pole of the Earth, and this kind of reminds me of it too, where we like to draw diagrams of the, the electromagnetic force of the poles from the core of the Earth and every other thing, basically. We have a North Pole and a South Pole. And you could wonder, because I don't really know the answer to this, but you can wonder if maybe things like light exist outside of our 3 dimensions that we have here. But also these shapes remind me of other things like subatomic particles and um, also cells. These remind me of like life cells building. So there's all kinds of correlations you can make to these things that I've drawn and other examples. But this is assuming that lower dimensions do really exist when really they don't. We they're just the building blocks of what does exist. And then we take this idea that, oh, we can, if we could tear it apart, maybe we can build on top of it, and then things get kind of weird and things don't make sense. And yeah, so that's where we're at. But I think honestly it is kind of interesting in the way that subatomic particles work, where the smaller you get in size, in magnitudes, orders of magnitude, suddenly everything, even like the solid objects, are no longer solid. The atoms are very far apart, you have space, and it goes down further and further and further. And then you start to get these weird shapes, like I think it's electrons or something, I can't remember at the moment, but the clouds of the electron cloud or some shit like that, I forget, but you get these clouds of different shapes and the quarks and all the other stuff that don't really make sense. And it almost seems as though this is depicting higher dimensions and lower orders of magnitude of scale. Whereas the higher the size the scale gets, the less dimensions make sense until you're left with dot. So I don't know. But it's just sort of playing with ideas without really believing in them. So this is where the theoretical stuff comes in. And the crazy thing is, some of it works. Obviously, this is just some geometric examples here, but the science and math do hold some ground in reality. This is how we've come up with the most craziest technologies we have today. Yet at the same time, all of this is like very confabulated, and I don't know. It's just how I feel about it right now. But anyway, thanks for watching. See you.